Yeah, I go with that program. Let's go back to the phones. Gary in Texas. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Bob, Robbie. Thank you guys for all that you do. I appreciate you. And miss John today, but I know he'll be back. I have a question on a couple of miners. One of them is actually, I suppose, not really a miner. It's Seabridge Gold, which is a gold hoarder. And I've held that now for a couple of years, expecting somebody to come along and snatch it up for its assets. And it just kind of sits and languishes after it had a pretty good run-up a few years ago. And so I was wondering, I'm a little on the positive side on that. Should I sell that and add a little Agnico Eagle to my portfolio, which I already have a little bit of that anyway? But unfortunately, I'm in it at 75.
Well, that doesn't mean anything because you're in for the long term.
That's
and
right.
on Agnico, the answer is yes, but you've got Gold Corp, Silver Standard, Mine Finders to consider as well. And I've never really cared for Seabreeze. I do not care for the man who runs the company. I don't like the way he does business. I was shown the stock at $1 and refused to recommend it, and that was about 8 or 9 years ago. And because I knew, the situation from a previous company, it is not a stock that I would pick.
Yeah, okay. And then another question. I heard today that there's a rumor afoot, I don't know how much truth there is in it, but that China and Brazil are fixing to abandon the dollar. Do you know anything about that?
Robbie does.
Yeah, well, that was reported yesterday by Bloomberg News, obviously confirmed today with the decline in the U.S. dollar. Currency traders were obviously digesting this information, so if it's reported on Bloomberg and then followed through on the currency floor with CNBC, you can take it to the bank.
And that's a natural extension of what's been going on. China is pushing, and China's got to realize that, first of all, there's still a command economy. There's still a communist country with a ruling dictatorship, and they have made their success by paying people slave wages because they've been allowed to do business in Western Europe and the United States and Canada through WTO. They didn't have to let them into WTO. They had all reasons not to do it, but they did. And the main reason that they allowed them in was to get cheap product to keep their domestic inflation down. This is the main reason. And probably to stick the Chinese with dollars, which they effectively did. And so I understand where China's coming from, but I don't think they should push as hard as they are because it may boomerang in their face in the form of a war.
Well, could we see then, and I heard you talking about the dollar earlier, and it's going to be very difficult for the U.S. to support the dollar. Are we looking at
That's correct.
Term collapse?
That's why people buy gold. All the currencies are depreciating against gold, and the dollar's depreciating against everything else.
Sure. And I have one more question, and maybe I'll go ahead and I guess, Robbie, what I'll do is I'll call you after your program later because I have a question on the International Forecaster, which I got with my gold purchase a couple of weeks ago. So I'll talk to you about it later.
Thanks,
Thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Incidentally, Rob, do you have a lot of those Mexican 50 pesos?
Well, what do you call a lot, Bob?
Do you have 100, or you have 20 or 30?
No, we have access to 80 of them.
Now, that's very good because you can't even buy them in Mexico City.
Yeah, I know.
It takes weeks, so it had to be an American seller.
Absolutely. And the good news, and I don't know how long it's going to last, but premiums on Silver Eagles have dropped considerably. Premium on Silver Eagles now is $3, well, to me anyway, is $3.50, which is down from $6. So we're starting to see a easing up on premiums. Premiums have also come down on Gold Eagles and Canadian Maple Leafs. So,
well, that Mexican coin is a gorgeous coin.
Sure, and it's a big gold coin, 20% bigger than an American Gold Eagle. So it's pretty much the size of an old silver dollar.
They get that big Mexican eagle on there.
Yes, they do. Let's go back to the phones. We've got Joe in California. Hey, Joe. Thanks for holding, brother.
Well, thank you. Thanks for all you guys do. I appreciate it. What my question is we have a 401k that got hammered. What are our options for protecting what's left?
Well, first of all, can you transfer your 401k away from where it's at? Is it with your employer?
It's with the wife's employer.
It's with the what employer?
My wife's employer.
Your wife's employer?
Yeah.
So can she borrow against it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that she should do. Borrow against it and then buy yourself some coins from Robbie.
Hang on. We've got a break coming up. Yeah, hang on, Joe. We'll be right back. We're speaking with Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster. This is National Intel Report. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the National Intel Report. Speaking with Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster and Joe from California. The problem, Bob, the problem with 401ks, I mean, there are no two 401ks that are identical. I mean, they're pretty much
right.
like, they annuities.
A custom-made derivative, huh?
Yeah. I mean, easy to get in, tough to get out.
Well, what you got to do is call and say, can I get a loan against it? And if they say, yes, it can vary anywhere between 10% and 75%. They may say, no, you can't. But if you can, you pull the money out, you're going to pay interest on it. You're obliged to pay it back. The interest that you pay belongs to yourself. It's sort of a wash transaction. But like if you have $200,000 in a 401k and they allow you to take half out, then you've got $100,000. You can go buy some coins. If we're right and they double in price while the market's going down, you save yourself the fall in the market in the 401k, and you've gained a great deal, probably doubling your money in gold, maybe even more. And so it's a prudent thing to do.
Yeah. Joe, you still there?
I'm still here, guys.
Yeah. The thing is, what your wife's got to do, she's got to call the administrator of the 401k plan.
Yes.
And ask him to tell her how many, what our options are. For instance, she can ask him, as Bob said, can she borrow against it? One. And two, your other alternatives is whether she could roll it over into a individual retirement account.
Yeah,
That way,
I've never heard of them allowing that, but you can give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them don't, but some of them do. So it's worthwhile asking if they would allow her to do that.
What do you think about closing it out and just
taking the hit,
putting it somewhere
safer? Yeah, but
safer?
would she get fired?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if she'd get fired, but the penalty, she'd have to pay the penalty on that.
Well, how much is in there?
About a little over 200,000.
Yeah, and that's normal.
You see, if she left the company, then she could roll that whole thing over into an individual retirement account and suffer no prepayment penalties.
That's right. And another thing too is that I want to remind you that, and everybody who's listening, that last fall and in ongoing subcommittee conversations, it is being bantered about whether that the administration might try to roll retirement accounts of all kinds into Social Security. And the minute that kind of bill comes out of committee, I will be on the radio and to my subscribers telling them, liquidate everything you got in retirement accounts. And that's a possibility. I don't know how possible it is. Nobody does. But if they try to pull that, it'll be like pulling the plug. There'll be a mad rush to get out. And I watched that talk about legislation very closely. It's extraordinarily important because you don't want to get stuck getting rolled into Social Security and just simply getting screwed out of what you've got by the government. And they wouldn't think twice of doing it. They will do it if they think it's necessary, and they may do that.